I'm Robin Hobbs, and I'm the creator and designer and stitcher of 3D Cross Stitch. Some of you may have seen my stuff. Some of you probably never heard of 3D Cross Stitch, but it can be done. I make things that are dolls or stuffed animals. This is my most recent one. It's a little corgi dog. The whole surface is covered in cross stitch, and he was made flat like a normal cross stitch piece. Then I cut the pieces out, sealed the edges because he was stitched on 14 count Aida, which is very prone to unraveling. So I sealed the edges with some glue. Then I hand assembled them. Today I'm going to be making a doll. This is the one that I've done recently. This is a Doctor Who doll, the 5th Doctor. Today I'm going to be working on the 6th Doctor. I've got him all cut out. As you can see, he was done flat. And I'm going to start by assembling his head, and then I will sew his 2 body pieces together. Okay, I match the color of the hair with my sewing thread, and I'm going to start by taking this area here, which is part of the seam allowance, and I'm going to fold that under sort of like a dart, and I'm going to bring my needle up halfway through an X. I'll come up, and then I go over to the one that's just across from it and go in, and then I'm going to come out through the top of that one halfway through, and then in on the other side. And as I tighten the thread, I will make sure that that seam allowance goes to the inside so it will not be seen and will work like a little dart. Now cross to the other side. Going underneath my cross. And when I come to an area where it changes, shifts in a smidgen, I go to the corner. And now to this one. And I'll continue this all the way around the head. But since this is going to be stuffed, I will not sew the bottom completely closed. I have to leave an opening to add the stuffing. I've sewn the 4 points together. Now I'm ready to sew the long edge down and sew the 2 together. This will be the beginning. Well, when I do that, I'll have half a sphere. And I do it in the same manner that I was doing the other, except now the seam allowance is just loose. It's not like making a dart as I was before. The hair on this doll will be added later. It's done like latch hooking a rug. You use a very tiny latch hook called a knit pick. I believe it's manufactured by Dritz. And it's actually a tool for repairing knit garments, but it works perfectly for what I'm going to do, and I will show you that when we get to it. I usually don't add the hair until I've added the head and the body to, well, join them together. And I'll continue this all the way down. And then I'll sew the points on the bottom edge together, just like I did the other, but I won't close it all the way so that I have an opening to stuff them. Alright, the head is assembled, except for one seam I left open. Now he's ready to be stuffed. I'm just going to use regular old fiber fill and jam it in the opening until I get it to the size and shape that I want it to be. Oops. Kids will roll. I typically stuff my dolls pretty full, firmly. Once I get it to the shape I like, I will then sew that final seam closed. And I'm about where I like it. Maybe a smidgen more, because that's way too gappy. Okay, the head is done. Now I start the body. The body is two pieces, front and back, and it's just a matter of sewing the two halves together. I start at the shoulder and work my way around the whole body, just sewing like I've been doing everything else. And then I leave it open at the neck so I can stuff it. So this is done in the same manner as what I did before. Oops. Sometimes thread pulls through. When that happens, you have to lock it. I just take a little partial stitch and come through my thread. Okay, now I can't come out. Again, I'm trying to match the color with my thread. This one, as you can see, is quite colorful. So there's probably going to be a few places where the thread may show a little bit, but the way I'm doing it with running the thread underneath cross stitches should keep most of it from showing. The main trick in sewing these things together is just to not show the bare Aida. That is why I go halfway through the cross stitch. You lose half of a stitch on both sides in the seam, but it keeps the bare Aida from showing. And when I get down to the end of the red, I'll switch over to the yellow that's in his cuff, and then when I get to the end of the yellow, I'll switch to flesh tone. I've sewn the body all shut now, and I've done most of the stuffing. I have a little bit left. As you can see, I stuff it through the neck hole, and I'm going to put the last little bit of stuffing in here. And then I'm going to sew the neck closed. And I'm doing the same process I've done everywhere else. Once I get beyond the cross stitching, I give it a little extra slack and don't try and sew as tightly. I'll leave more of the white showing. This white is not going to show because you're going to put the head on top of it, and so it's okay to let this be a little bit wider. It'll show more of the collar in the finished doll, and it really doesn't matter what your stitches look like, again, because it's not going to show. Like crap. Now back to the cross-stitched section. And so I'm going to take a little more care with it here. Okay, the body is finished. I don't have my scissors. And now I attach the head. And this I just kind of do some whip stitches around it to get it on. Position it on the way you want it. I usually just line up the shoulder seam and the side of the head seam like that, and just run through the body a little bit. And the stitches can be large, it's not really going to show. Just line it up. And through the head. Back through the body. Alright, I'm ready to do the hair. What I'm going to use is 436 floss. I've got it in a cone. I know a lot of you probably don't even know that cones of floss exist, but they do. And if you use skeins on something like this, it usually takes about 10 skeins of floss to do it. I'm going to cut each strand of hair into a piece that is 5 inches long. And the way I do that is I cut myself a strip of cardboard. It's 2.5 inches this way, so when I wrap it around the cardboard, that's going to give me one piece that's 5 inches long. And I usually just kind of wind it around a few times, then cut it, and cut it across the middle, so I'll end up with a bunch of pieces that are 5 inches long, like that. Then I take my floss and I split it so that it's groups of 3 instead of putting 6 strands through at once. So there we got a couple of strands of hair. To put it on, I use a little gizmo called a knit picker made by Dritz. Here's one that I have in reserve for when the one I've been using breaks. But I've been using this one for a few years, and it's a pretty sturdy little tool. I just put masking tape on it just to hold the handle together. It tended to come apart on me. But it works. It's just an itty-bitty little latch hook. I don't know how many of you have done latch hook rugs, but it's a very simple method of getting yarn to go through something. You take your strand of hair, fold it in half, and the loop, you slip your hook through it with the hook in the open position. Take your doll and you slip the hook underneath some of the Aida and drag it all the way through until the little latch is gone through. Then you take your hair, wrap it around, and drag it through. And that makes a little knot to hold it in. And then you just continue doing this all over the head and the bare Aida section. Start out doing it very close together. I usually start at the top of the head, and I'll put it just about every square of Aida. And as I go down the head, I start spreading them out. The hair has been added, and I have been curling it. What I've done is just wind it up like you're curling regular hair and pinned it in place with a bobby pin. I'm almost finished with that. Got 2 more little pieces to use to curl, that is. And I'm just going to coil it up on this, hold it, get my bobby pin, and there you have it. He's done. I've curled his hair and fluffed it all with my fingers to spread it out, make it look right. He's all assembled. After he was assembled, there were little places where the thread, where I'd knotted it, where I'd assembled it, were sticking out. I just jammed those into the seams using a big fat needle, so you don't see those. But that is how I sew together and add hair to my doll. Thank you for watching.